Hi, everyone. Welcome in. We're going to go ahead and get started here in just a minute or two. Feel free to drop in the chat where you're joining from. We always like to see how far we've been able to reach. Okay, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and get started, but yeah, folks can continue to join in. Welcome to VMUG Webcast. We're excited that you're here. We're really excited to bring some content today that'll help you all prep as you start going to tech conferences, including VMUG Connects. So, welcome. My name's Erica. I'm on the team here who works with virtual programming, and we're excited you're here. If this is your first time attending a VMUG webinar, welcome. The VMware User Group, or VMUG, is an independent global customer-led organization created to maximize members' use of VMware and partner solutions through knowledge sharing, training, collaboration, and events. A couple things for housekeeping. We encourage everyone to get connected to a local VMUG community near you at my.vmug.com, and you'll be able to find a community near you. And then please use the Q&A function throughout the webcast. Our panelists will be able to answer questions live and I'll be able to answer those in the question box throughout the webcast. And this session is being recorded, and the recording will be distributed in a wrap-up email after the webcast and also posted to the VMUG YouTube so you can access it anytime. You can find all future VMUG webcasts here. I know if you're weary of QR codes, you're welcome to go to vmug.com and click events, and then you'll be able to find webcasts there as well. And then I have to do a plug for VMUG Connect. These are our in-person conferences this year, and we're so excited. We'll be in 5 cities, 3 countries, 2 continents. We really encourage you to register today. Amsterdam is coming up super soon, which is why we're bringing you this content today. But don't sleep on Minneapolis, Toronto, Dallas, or Orlando. We hope you can join us, and this is going to be really great community content, technical content. We'll have hands-on labs, certifications, and we're just really excited to bring this to you. So click on that QR code to find out more, or you can go to vmug.com and find out more information about Connect there. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers today. So we have Brad Tompkins. He is the Executive Director here at VMUG. And then we also have Maarten Van Driessen, and he is a Belgian VMUG leader, a V-expert, a Broadcom Knight, a long-time VMUGger. I think the list goes on and on. But I'm going to hand it over to you guys, and we're excited to have you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica. I appreciate that. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Maarten, thanks for being here as well. And yeah, you got quite the long list of accolades behind your name there. Well done, sir. Well done.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good stuff. So like Erica said, throw in the chat where you're coming from. This is going to be super interactive. The PowerPoints are over, so you're just going to be Maarten and I the rest of the way. But feel free to ask your questions. We'll do our best to keep up with the chat. There's not a ton of people on here. But so chat will be good. Q&A, definitely we'll see those. But what we want to talk about is just the power of showing up. You know, this is not a technical session. This is just about how you can, really take advantage of in-person events and, to some degree virtual events. But I think the magic really happens when it's in person, because you get to meet people and talk to people and rekindle friendships that you maybe have had and those kind of things. I know, Maarten, I see you 2 or 3 times a year at various conferences, and it's great. It's kind of like I'm not quite sure when I'll see Maarten, but I know I will, and it'll be great when I do. So that's what we're here for today. So please ask your questions, and we'll get going. So Maarten, just a question for you to start off. How many conferences have you been to?
Oof. You should have asked me that before, so I had time to count. But I think it's going to be well over 15, close to 20 maybe at this point. I think I started doing conferences back in 2014-ish, back when I was still in the Microsoft space. And then 2016, when I switched to the VMware side of things, is when I really started ramping things up in attendance.
Are you ever really out of the Microsoft space, though? Let's be honest. I mean, we're all still kind of in there to some degree, right?
I know enough to be dangerous. Let's keep it at that.
Well, I know they want people to recycle their lanyards, but I don't. And I got a graphic here for you, live graphic. So I save all my lanyards, and I have got a ton of these things. But it's a lot of fun because anytime like I move offices, I recently moved offices, you kind of go back through them and you see all the places that you've been and those kind of things. I think probably weighs 15 pounds. It's a lot of lanyards.
Yeah,
But it's
especially if you get those pins to add on there, then those really add up to the weight.
yeah, there are definitely some pins on there too. So that's a good point. So Maarten, what are your tips and tricks for people that why let me ask you this. Why do you feel it's so important to go to in-person conferences?
Um, Building out your own network is probably the most cliche answer I can give, but
Hmm.
it's a cliche for a reason because it's very true. I first started, as I said, going to events 2014. I was a bit more introverted back then. Um, and I really had a hard time just going up to people and talking to people. So I kind of sat in the corner by myself or with a colleague or so. But you just ended up going to sessions and you learn a lot, but you also miss out on a ton of great conversations and insights or yeah, opportunities to get to know people who really understand the product in a completely different level or way than you do. So I think that's the most important part of all.
And you mentioned being introverted, and I think a lot of people are in that boat. You're in a big conference, maybe a small conference, it doesn't really matter, but you're in a room with a bunch of people that you don't know. And it is, I mean, that's a skill that you can learn to how do you go up and start that conversation? Explain to me a situation where you've been in a went up to somebody that you didn't know before. Like, how did you get that conversation going?
It was at my second VMUG I ever attended, actually. The first one I did, as I said, I was just kind of on my own, just looking at stuff and sessions, and then I made an agreement with myself to just go up to somebody random
I
during
like it.
the morning hours that was by himself and just strike up a conversation, and that sounded easier in my head than it actually was back at the time. But I just went up to somebody who was alone. I'm like, "Hi, my name is Maarten. Who are you? Can you tell me who you work for, what your story is, blah, blah, blah." And we ended up spending most of the conference together and then have been chatting on and off for the past few years, actually. Whenever I run into him at another VMUG, it's always the same conversations or continuing the same conversations that we have before. And it's always good to hear his insights.
I think that's a great point, and that's something that I would encourage everybody to do. Again, it might be uncomfortable, but just make that goal of, look, I'm going to meet somebody new. Trust me, there are plenty of people that are eating by themselves or standing, off by themselves, those kind of things. And just go up and talk to them. You're at a tech conference, here's a question to ask them. What do you think about the Broadcom acquisition? Let's just jump right into it.
Yeah,
Or maybe you don't want to go there. Maybe it's just like, hey, where you are in your VCF journey? How long you been doing VMware? You kind of have something instantly that you have in common with them because you're at a conference. I mean, you know what the conference is about. So whether that's a VMware conference or a Dell conference or a Cisco conference, I mean, you kind of know why people are there. So it's an easy way to kind of break that ice. And trust me, more times, I would say 99 times out of 100, they're going to appreciate the fact that you came up to them and asked that question and, got the conversation going.
yeah, and you can use those people that you know to kind of jumpstart your own network. Like if somebody else comes and talk to him or her, just be like, "Hey, who was that guy? What does he do? What's his deal?" And then you kind of get to know those people, and you can strike up more conversations down the line, and that just builds. It's a snowball effect, really.
And you mentioned the tech content, and all conferences have a good tech content there, right? But I'm telling you, I feel like I've gotten more value out of the side conversations than the tech content. Now, keep in mind, tech content's everywhere, right? So most of these sessions are recorded anyway, and you can go see them later on. I'm a big fan of going back and looking at keynotes again and those kind of things. So, you can always catch up on that tech conversation. I mean, on that tech content, but you can't catch up on a hallway conversation. Once that event's over, it's over.
Absolutely. That's why when I first went to explore back when it was called VMworld still, I would just session all day long. And then after COVID, I was like, maybe I should just not do that and switch it up this year. Just stay around the V-Experts or community booth, just see what happens there, because that's where people kept telling me that's where the real magic happens. And ended up being true. And I think I've only done 2 or 3 sessions at an Explore that I actually absolutely didn't want to miss, where I wanted to ask a question in person there. For the rest, I'm just at the community booth or walking around talking to people. That's what I do these days at the conference.
So are you telling me the only sessions you go to, Martin, are the ones that you're presenting at?
Those and the ones where I really want to ask a question to the presenter if it's about a
I
topic
know,
that
I
I'm
know. I'm giving you a hard time.
uh,
But that's another good point about in person. If you do go to a session, and sometimes you can see them just walking around the hallway, that you can go up and talk to these speakers. And I know VMUG members are like, one of the reasons, we like VMUG is access to Broadcom, access to experts, whether it be a knight like yourself, Martin, or a Broadcom employee or whatever. I mean, that's a great way to do it. And they're willing to hang around and ask that question. You can ask that question and they can give you their opinion on that topic that they just spoke about or something else. Sometimes you need more, you need a different type question answered. So that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I did the same with William Lamb a couple years ago. I was like, "Hey, I'm having an issue with this Viva project you launched. Do you mind just giving me a pointer on where to go?" And he was super helpful and willing to chat. And we ended up exchanging emails afterwards to get the issue solved. So that also serves as an opening to get further.
Yeah. Sometimes I've been in line to talk to a speaker and I just still listen to whoever's asking whatever question because I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't have that question, but that's a pretty good question. So let me
Exactly.
listen in on that one. So that's
That's why I usually
take
just go
advantage
up
of
to
the
the
time.
front to ask a question, not necessarily, but just to listen in on what people are actually saying there, because they might be using the product in a completely different way than you are. It might give
Hmm.
you new ideas for how to do yourself.
That's right. All right. So after the conference, you made these connections, Martin. How do you maintain those connections? You mentioned the person that you met that one time and y'all still keep in touch. Is there any tips that you have on that?
Usually just finding out where people hang out virtually. These days it's a lot of Discord because the VExpert Discord moved. There's the V community Discord where a lot of people still hang out.
Yeah.
So that is my main way of interacting with people that I've seen or don't really know all that well. There's a couple of WhatsApp groups that do the same. Other than that, it's just like before, exchanging emails, exchanging phone numbers, just texting up somebody, just keeping in touch so you don't forget them or they don't forget you, more importantly.
Right. No, I think that's a good tip. All right. So for those out there, in most conferences, we'll have a, approval type, letter or something like that. I forgot exactly what they call it, but, and Connect has it as well, but convince your boss. That's what I'm thinking of. But that's something that most of these conferences, and VMUG certainly does, has that framework that you can email your boss because in many cases, especially multi-day conference, you're going to be out of the office. You might need to get a flight, a hotel, those kind of things. But there's resources there for you to ask and get that. And I would just say when you're doing that, make sure that you tell your boss, look, this is training. We're definitely going to get training in this with these sessions. You may or may not come back with the certification, though, Connects are going to have certifications. I'm sure Explore is going to have certifications. So obviously getting a certification is huge. Like that might be the only thing you need to tell your boss you're going to get. But even if you don't get that certification, or maybe one's not offered in that particular conference, highlight the sessions like, hey, we're working on this vSAN project. Here's a session that I need to go talk to. We're working on this VDepend product, and here's a session I'm going to go to. And by the way, Chris McCain is doing that session. So I'm going to get to talk to him afterwards. And, those kind of, John Nichols is doing the, vSAN session or whatever, let him know. And then you can also say, look, I'm going to write this up afterwards and I'll, present at the company meeting or the IT meeting or whatever, just 5 minutes worth of what I've learned and those kind of things. Because if you can then bring that back to the rest of your company that maybe didn't get to attend, I think that's huge. And most companies have training budgets out there. And some of these conferences, I mean, the conferences vary in price, right? But you take a Connect, it's not that expensive. I mean, the ticket's going to range anywhere from 250 to probably 450, 500, depending on if you're an Advantage subscriber, early birds, all those kind of things. And then, of course, flights and hotels, how all those work. But it's a great investment that your company can make in you But there's a lot of people that just take PTO and go do it on their own. So Martin, what's been your experience? Is it a situation where in your career, has it been something you self-funded or do you have your company pay for it? I know you're in a little bit different situation, and we'll get to the spousal approval here in a minute, but or
Yes.
you can go ahead and chime in on that one as well.
In the past, it's been a struggle. I've gone through all phases where I was an employee and I had to actually convince my boss to be able to go because they didn't see the value that they were going to get back. In the end, I managed to convince them more times than not that it was actually worth it. And like you said, got a certification or got to talk to a speaker that was presenting about a topic we were doing a project for. So those were two main selling points that I had to use to be able to go. Then I've also been in positions where right now I work as a freelancer, so I can basically choose where I go, as long as my wife approve, obviously. But I can just decide which provides the best value to me. I still can't go to every single conference in the world because then my company would be bankrupt. But I decide which ones would bring me most value, and Explore is always at the top of the list. Sadly, won't be able to get there this year, but Connect was a no-brainer to go. It's not that expensive in the end. I'm even going to the ones in the US, coming from Belgium, so there still is a lot of value in that for me because you get to talk to people, and that is the main driver. Being able to see somebody face to face is still something different than seeing each other on a Zoom call or talking on Discord or whatever.
And another piece I want to mention is the partner side of things. Look, you go in the exhibit hall, and depending on the partner, some are very good about engaging and pulling you in, and you almost have no choice but to get scanned, and maybe you get a prize or whatever, gets their swag or whatever. But I would look at that partner list too, because there might be somebody there that you're like, hey, I don't know this company, but this looks like good information. And that could also be included in the, convincing your boss. I mean, I'm thinking of like a Valley Cyber. They're relatively new. If you've been to a VMUG, you've heard them, but I mean, they've got some great security solutions around ESX that I don't think anybody else offers. So that could be something that you could put in to convince your boss is like, hey, we need to find out about this because we all know vulnerabilities and attacks on VMware, specifically vSphere, is increasing. I mean, attacks are increasing tenfold anyway. And then you throw AI into the mix. Anyway, this isn't a cybersecurity session, but it's crazy. So, the partners bring a lot of value to these events as well. They're probably going to be a little bit easier to go up to and talk to, but we encourage folks at Connects, bring your engineers to sit in those booths, bring your engineers to talk at the sessions, not the sales folks. Now, sales folks will be there and we like sales folks too, but there's a lot of good engineers that they might be vExpert, they might be Knights, they might be, experts in maybe Dell or HPE or something else that you use. So that's a good tip there
Yeah,
as
and
well
even you
to
can
look at
even
the
use
partners.
those to progress your own career. I know somebody who's in this call who actually got a job offer from one of the partners when he was attending the conference. So that is also another venue to walk or avenue to walk.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think you never know where your next opportunity is going to come, and you never know when your next opportunity is going to need to come because maybe some situation happens out of your control. So it's never a bad idea to keep those contacts and those networking, that network, strong. Because
Yeah.
and the flip side is maybe you'll help somebody. In the position I'm in, I do have a lot of partners come to me and say, "Hey, we're looking for a VMware expert. Do you know anybody?" And I usually got a handful of people I can send their way to say, "Hey, this is somebody that's looking." And whether it's public or not, it doesn't matter. There's ways you can get around that. But that's a good point.
Yeah, I used it myself when I switched roles last year in June. I just basically went up to a managing partner of a company that I work for now. Said like, I like what you do. Do you want to have me? And because we saw each other a couple times over the years, he was like, okay, sure, let's do this. It took a bit more than that, but that's basically what it boiled down to. So being able to leverage that is really powerful.
Right. That's a good tip. One thing that you mentioned I want to go back to is size of events. So, an Explore is probably 5,000 people. I was at Cisco Live, it was 21,000 people. an HP or Dell, I think they're in the 10 to 20,000 people. Like a Google Next is crazy. And don't even get me on AWS. Like reInvent is just, I can't even fathom how big that is. RSA is another huge conference. Connects are going to be 300 to 500 people. But I still think you can do all of these tips, whether it's a big conference or a small conference. Obviously, a small conference is going to be a little bit easier. And I feel like you kind of almost have to have that. I can't think of the word, but you don't want it to be 10 people, right? But
No,
once you get 300 to 5,000, I mean, there's only so many people you can meet, right? So it's
absolutely.
obviously there's lots of opportunities with the bigger ones, but sometimes that can be overwhelming. So I mean, look at the size of the conference and go with what fits you. There's all kind of conferences out there.
Yeah, I think at the bigger conferences, it's easy to get lost in the amount of people that just are there. Being able to just hop on your existing relationships and build new ones on top of that is really powerful. But it's even more powerful at the smaller ones because Connect last year in St. Louis was where I met a lot of new people compared to Explore, which I did for a number of years, just because of the size of it. It was a relatively small group of people, again, 300, 400 people,
Hmm.
but just being able to have that amount of people there and knowing, oh, that's the guy from Denver, that's the guy from Chicago, and just being able to go up to them and talk to them again, really, really powerful stuff there.
Yeah, for reference, St. Louis last year had about a little over 300 people. But that's, you might see somebody in a session and then you see him at the, say reception afterwards. And it's like, oh, well, that was the guy that was in the vSAN session. Hey, what'd you think of that vSAN session? Again, an instant way to kind of have an icebreaker and get that conversation started. Because, I mean, that's a skill, again, everybody can learn and hone in on.
Yeah, and I think especially speakers at the smaller conferences are way more accessible than at the bigger ones, just because of the amount of people that might be interested or might want to ask them a question. At a smaller conference, naturally, it's going to be a smaller number of people that are in the queue in front of you, and they
Yeah, and
usually stick
depending
around.
on the conversation, like you mentioned, going up to a partner saying, "Hey, would you be interested in, having me as an employee?" Sometimes those conversations are better had at a reception versus, when there's a long line and the speaker's trying to, get to everybody or at the booth. And, depending on your situation, you may not want everybody to know that you're having those conversations. But I think that's important to attend those receptions and attend I mean, not really after hours. I mean, I guess it's after hours, but most conferences will have some kind of receptions afterwards. And I would not blow those off. That's a great place to go. Usually laid back, you can get some food, drink, whatever, and see some people. Most of them will have some kind of engagement going on, whether it's a photo booth or a putt putt or a whatever. So it's a fun atmosphere to meet new people there, especially if you're not as comfortable just going up to somebody. But trust me, if you start doing that, you'll get into it and you'll find yourself going up to anybody and everybody. At least that's what happened to me.
Yeah, and that builds a different connection than oh, you're using NSX in this or that way. When you're at the reception and you get to make fun of a certain baseball team out of Chicago, for example, that also creates a different connection there.
Oh yeah, sports is always fun to either make fun of people about, or maybe you're in the same boat and you can link hands there. One thing I wanted to ask is, all right, so what's your go-to when you're going? Let's just start with the bigger conferences. So like a 5K, 4-day conference. What's in your bag?
Oh, all kinds of clothes, shorts, long pants, all that kind of stuff. Because you never know what you're gonna end up doing. This year or last year at Explore, we ended up going to Yosemite and then a bunch of other national parks instead of the conference for part of it. So that kind of happened. It was pre-planned, but still, you never know. But a change of clothes more than you would actually need, because after a day long in the conference, you're not going to be smelling all that great. Let's keep it at that. So just a change of clothes for the evening receptions and just bring double what you usually would is usually where I end up, and leave a lot of room for swag. It's gone down over the years, but you still end up with a decent suitcase worth of stuff to get back home, and decent shoes. For the love of God, decent shoes is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, and I say bring multiple pair too,
Yeah,
because you don't want to be wearing this, even though they might be comfortable. You don't want to wear the same ones for 5 days straight.
no, that is very true.
I used to be a big fan of bringing like a battery and stuff like that, but I've kind of quit. I just, the batteries are heavy, and I feel like there's plenty of plugs around everywhere. And obviously you plug up overnight, get the laptop. Every night I'm plugging up everything. So hopefully
Yeah.
I can make it through the day without having to plug up. Every now and again I'll need to go find a charger here and there, and my laptop could always charge my phone if I was in a pinch. So I've kind of dropped the battery off and just don't even bring that and just, wing it. What about you? Do you carry a battery?
I have up until this point. It worked great when I was doing an install in Dallas, but it kind of depends on what you plan to use. I use my laptop and my iPad during the conference and my phone a lot, just because I'm writing down notes or preparing
Hmm.
a blog or whatever. Um, so I usually carried around the battery because it was easy to just sit in a session and charge. But as you said, there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of plugs everywhere. So that is probably the easiest route. I will probably still take a battery because if I start taking the charger out of my room, I will lose it somewhere and be in the worst place. So just knowing myself there. But batteries are heavy, especially the bigger ones where you can top up your device multiple times. I usually take my laptop but leave it in the room, or put it somewhere
Oh,
else.
okay. See, I carry my laptop around.
Yeah, I still need to get a smaller one. For now, it's a big one, and that gets heavy carrying it around, especially if I also bring my iPad. So have to make choices there.
Yeah, that's fair. I got a 14-inch laptop, which I'd like to do the 13 inch because of the size, but my eyes are not liking the 13 inch. So,
No,
I'm in that 14. When you get to 15 and higher, man, that thing's gonna get heavy. I agree with you.
I've got the 16-inch MacBook, so that is very heavy these days.
Oh my gosh, that thing is a workstation. You can't be carrying that thing around. No wonder you leave it in a hotel.
Yeah.
All right. So what has been like, give me a couple of your biggest, aha moments. Maybe this was something that happened to you that you weren't expecting, or somebody that you met, or you finally got to meet this particular speaker or this particular, industry titan that you were like, oh man, this is pretty cool that this happened, from being at a conference. I mean, some of these folks that you see at conferences, you're probably not going to see out in the street or on, Wall Street or wherever those people are, hang out. But anything comes to mind on that?
So many different opportunities. I remember back in 2019 during the V-Expert party that all of a sudden the CEO of the time just walked in and had a conversation with everybody there, which was very I, it was weird because he was just a down-to-earth guy and you kind of expected him to be very different.
That sounds like
Um,
Gelsinger. Is that
and it
right?
was Gelsinger, yeah. Yeah. He just shook everybody's hand and they had to chaperone him out of there or he would have ended up spending hours there. So that was really, really fun and being able to meet Hawktan and stuff at the VMUG Leader reception or the V-Expert party. Those are all opportunities that present themselves because you're engaged in the community. But then on the flip side as well, those speakers, like you said, Chris McCain and William Lamb and Duncan Epping, you kind of read about them and you're like, oh, these guys must be superhuman to do the things they're all doing. But they're just regular people. They like having a regular conversation over a beer, and just having that realization in my head is eye opening. So I can just go up to them, ask them a question. They won't bite me. They won't be mad at me. Which was really how I changed the way I look at things there.
Yeah, and you mentioned like the V expert party. So I'm guessing if it was Gelsinger, that was a few years back when VMworld was probably 15 to 20K people. So
Yeah.
kind of going back to that size thing, look at the parties that people have and parties, receptions, whatever you want to call it. But if you're a part of a group and you can get into like a V expert, that's going to take that 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 size conference and then shrink it down for that reception to maybe 500 people, maybe 1,000 people. And that's much better to mingle and talk to people. A lot of vendors will have, it seems like every conference has a day the 3-4 day conferences, they'll have a day where they let the partners kind of do what they want to. And so that's a way. It's easy enough to get invites to these things, go to the booth, whatever. There's websites out there that'll put all the different parties. And then, you go, and what that does is that shrinks down the size of that conference. It's not everybody there. Usually they'll rent out a place or whatever. So it's really easy to get in and get out. I've shown up to more than these, I should say, to where I wasn't even registered, but you got your lanyard on. You're like, hey, I need to be here, and they'll let you in. It's fine.
Absolutely.
And that is nice. It's a great way to kind of take that conference. It's a huge conference and break it down. And even if it's a conference like a Connect that's going to be, let's say 500 people is what we'll probably have in Amsterdam. Even breaking it down to 50 or 100 or something, it just makes it a little bit more manageable if you're not comfortable, in a large situation and meeting people. But again, I think the biggest thing about these conferences is just meet as many people as you can. You never know when that conversation is going to lead to something down the road, even if it's just a fun 15, 20 minutes talking with somebody, or it could be a lifelong friendship that you see them at conferences all over the place.
Yeah, you should always say yes. Like if somebody comes up to you or in a conversation like, "Hey, we're going out for a beer or darts or whatever," just always say yes, because you never know where you're gonna end up, and you might meet people that you weren't completely expecting, like a bunch of Australians who we crashed the party of that I can now talk to. It's so random, these things that happen there, but it's great.
All right. Well, any questions does anybody have for Maarten or me? Or Maarten, anything that any other points that you want to mention that we didn't touch on?
I haven't seen any questions in the chat yet, but I think the most important things that I wanted to talk about have been said. It's just meeting people, talking to people, and just getting over yourself and actually getting out there. And don't be afraid to talk to people, because they're just as anxious to talk to other people as you are, probably.
I agree with that. Again, make that goal. Hey, I'm going to meet somebody new that I've never met before. And, we all have lanyards on. We all have our name tags on. And, it's a great way to go up there and talk to him and talk, about whatever, just to get the conversation started. But you'll be surprised how easy that is. And like Maarten said, I agree. They could be just as anxious as you are in that situation. And, nobody likes to drink a beer alone or have a, meal alone or something like that. So it's always easy to find people that are kind of just doing their own thing. And yeah, just go up to them and start that conversation.
Absolutely.
This was a question I got was how do you decide what sessions to attend or how to build your schedule?
I usually just check everything that is level 300 and go from there, because I am still a techie, and those are the things that interest me the most and are usually the sessions that I would get the most value out of. But then I build a schedule and then I just forget about it and do whatever. But I do like to register up front to make sure that I have a spot. Or just add a bunch of things to my wish list to make sure that if a session doesn't really live up to what I thought it would be, I could just stand up and go to a different session and see if that provides me better value. So just way over subscription there, and just see where you end up.
All right. So I got a different angle on that because I am not the 300 level content like my Broadcom Knight friend over here, Maarten. I always go to the keynotes. I mean, I dig the keynotes. Again, they're all recorded. I used to try to take notes and tweet out during. I don't do that anymore. I just try to consume the keynote. I can go back and do my blog later or do a, tweet about it later. Watching it in the recording. In the recording, you can watch normally, 1.5 or 2x speed. So it's like just really, I try to live in the moment and take in everything. No phones, no notes, no nothing. Just kind of take it all in. And then as far as sessions, I kind of think about it on who's speaking, because sometimes I ask people that I'm like, hey, I don't know this person. I want to get to know them, even if it's just their speaking style, what kind of content they do, those kind of things. Or either it might be somebody that's like, oh, I hadn't talked to this person in a while. I'm going to go, check their session out. I tend to be more that, 100, 200 level. I'm far beyond the guy behind the keyboard anymore. but I do like to stay up with what's going on, and it reminds me of my days when I was behind the keyboards and running data centers and doing SRM and all that kind of stuff, which I just recently dawned on me they renamed that. But nonetheless, um, so that's what I look for. And I also, again, I look at where what are the evening activities? What's going on in between that I need to hit. Now, some of those you may or may not be able to register for, but try to find out, what's going on in the evening, because that's where a lot of networking can happen. And, you're at a conference, you're away from home. It's not like I can do anything else. So, again, I try to book up my day from, 8 a.m. keynote to, as late as I can make it at night. And most of these things are going to wrap up at 9 or 10 anyway. So you can still get a good night's sleep and do whatever. And so it's that's kind of what I look for. But great question.
And probably also just keep an eye on the different social platforms that exist out there for opportunities that present themselves during the conference, because those requests for people or requests for stories or whatever are going to go out a couple of weeks ahead of the conference. That's how I ended up being on a panel discussion with analysts at one point, just by following a social media post and saying like, sure, I'll do it. And that is a completely different conversation that you have there than with techies or with salespeople, and just broadens your horizon.
And most of these conferences will have like a big party at the end. I'm thinking like at Explore, they'll change the keynote area and have a band or whatever. But I've noticed over the past 4 or 5 years, they've really done a good job of having some areas that you can network, still be involved, in the party, listen to the music, that kind of stuff. But there's some people that are going to be right front row with the band and, they're getting into it. Maybe it's their favorite band or whatever. And that's great. You go do that. But if if you want to network, there's still opportunities to have conversations and do that kind of thing in a different environment than a conference center or something. It's kind of fun sometimes to see those bands. I tweeted out recently, I like when conferences do the party at the venue. It's like, there's some exceptions. One time I got to see Kenny Chesney at the Sphere, but I was actually at Mandalay. So at Venetian. So I guess it's the same. But nonetheless, it's one of these. It just makes it easy. You know where it is. You know the venue. You're not busing anywhere. It's like, don't put me on a bus. Just let me go where it's at and those kind of things. Sometimes buses are necessary. So I will definitely get on the bus. And that's another good time to network. So anyway, I'm rambling on, but that's my take.
Part two
Yeah, I
of that
didn't mind the
question.
bus ride there to St. Louis, because I got to chat with an Aussie that was doing NSX deployments and was running into issues, and we ended up just going through the issue together, and that was fun.
Oh,
So,
nice.
every
There you go.
opportunity.
Part two of that question is then how do you take that content back and implement it? Or do you have any tips of how do you take, 3 days, 5 days of content back to make meaningful changes at your job, especially if they covered your expenses?
Usually, I would rewatch the sessions that would provide me the most value in my day job, just to make sure that I've been able to really get the point that they were trying to make, or really watch the demo in a non beamer setting, which can be distracting at times, or hard to follow. Just being able to tune everything out and just sit in front of your screen and then rewatch that again might make it click, and you can follow along in your own environment at the same time. Just having the opportunity to rewatch everything is really valuable there.
I agree with that. And I think it's okay if you're back and your boss, your first day back and your boss like, how was the conference? What'd you learn? It's okay to say, hey, these are the sessions that I went to, and I'm going to go back on demand and really dig into this because point A, B, or C is something that we need to explore. I think that's fine. And most of these things, like we said, are on demand. Sometimes if you didn't attend the conference, they won't be on demand, though I feel like most people will let it be open, or maybe you can get early access before the general public. So that's always a benefit too, of just like, hey, this is available because I went to the conference, and something I can go back and rewatch numerous times.
Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts? Tips that we didn't cover? I think for me, when I attended Explore last year, the good shoes was the main takeaway, and just making sure to get that schedule. So
Yeah, and if you don't know what to do, or you have a moment of downtime, just always go to either the VMUG booth or the communities booth, because there's always something to do there, or people just hang out and chilling out there that you can talk to. It's just talking to people all week long.
Yeah, I think I'll echo that. I think the biggest thing is just, meet as many people as you can, ask them a lot of questions, and you'll be surprised on where that's going to take you as far as just the value of the conference. And again, you never know. You could meet a lifelong friend that you might see once a year at Explore or once a year to Connect or whatever the case may be, but still it's a lot of fun. And with these other channels, like you mentioned, the WhatsApp and the Discords and, the social media and all that kind of stuff, there's ways that you can stay in touch with people, even though they might not be on your continent or same time zone or anything like that. You can get that asynchronous communication going so you're not pinging them in the middle of the night.
Great. Well, I'm gonna close it out with some of our housekeeping, but if folks have questions in the meantime, you're totally able to still jump them in the chat. Um, Hopefully everyone can see my screen. There we go. So this session was recorded. It will also launch into a survey once the webcast ends, so you can so please provide us that feedback. This helps us to bring fresh, relevant content to VMUG and also ensures that things like this will
Erica, you
continue
are
in the
not full
future.
screen if you want, at least on
Yeah,
my
I was
side,
trying
you're
to
not
click
full
that.
screen.
Oh, perfect. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, guys.
It's all right.
So yeah, the session was being recorded. Please fill out that survey that helps us bring content. And then also use the code community for 10% off of a 1 year Advantage membership. Always got to plug Advantage. Here's some information about what our general membership provides, and then Advantage provides discounts on top of that, including discounts to attend Explore, Connect, including free certification sits at Connect. It also includes vDefend, Avi Load Balancer, and includes some licenses when you pass your VCF certifications. And then also has some discounts on courses, including from New Horizons and more. So really encourage everyone to make sure to become an Advantage member, and it's the best way to support VMUG. And there's that QR code that'll automatically provide the discount.
And I threw my contact info in there as well. So my cell is tied up to everything: WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, RCS. I'm not an Apple guy, so no iMessaging. Sorry there, Martin. But anyway, now that RCS is there, at least I can get good pictures and videos. That's also my X handle. My DM's open, so you can hit me up there. I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can find me. Email works as well, but always welcome to talk to anybody. Just feel free to text me or pick up the phone and call me. Always happy to talk to VMUG members out there about anything and everything.
Great.
Martin, thanks so much for doing this. I
You're
appreciate you,
very
buddy. Looking
welcome.
forward to see you. It's already March, so what? A couple weeks away. We'll see you in Amsterdam.
2 weeks away. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah,
It
we hope to see
is.
everyone at a Connect soon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you soon.